The following video will review using a handheld RFID scanner with the Tracking Plus software. Here we can see that we've got a view of my handheld scanner. This is what my scanner looks like, and these are the options that I see on the screen. We already have our Tracking Plus configured and our middleware configured with the Tracking Plus service. On the handheld, we've got multiple options. First thing we're going to do is just look at any one of these options just to see that there's no data currently in the handheld. So we haven't performed our initial sync yet. So the very first thing we want to do with a brand new handheld is go to the sync option, ensure that RFID is listed as our service or whatever you called your service. The IP address is the IP of your server running the middleware service, and that we change this to full refresh. We now click send, and this will communicate with the middleware to get a full refresh and synchronize the handheld with the database. So here we can see that it's complete. Now, if we go back to that add option, we'll notice that under location, we've got any of our locations that we have set up in our database. So here we can see in Tracking Plus, we have dock and warehouse as our two locations. We can see here that we've got two assets in the database, and one of these doesn't have an EPC currently, but we've got a barcode and a serial. So we've got some information, but it does not look like it's been RFID tagged yet. Well, let's go ahead and do that with the handheld. So on the handheld, again, I'm in the add section. I'm going to go ahead and just set the location where I am. I'm going to set the item type, so we'll just choose monitor. And then I can go ahead and maybe zap the barcode that's on the monitor. So we'll go ahead and do that with the handheld. Maybe there's a serial number on the monitor as well. We can zap a barcode for that. In this case, it's going to be the same number. And if I jump back here, we can see we already have that value in our database. So what should happen once we save and sync is this record should get updated with this EPC when we read the RFID tag. So now on the handheld, I'm going to put my cursor in the EPC field. I'm going to pull the trigger to read the RFID tag that I've applied to this asset. If you get a message multiple tags were found, or if it's not reading the tag, you may have to change your power setting on the handheld. So here's a slider where you can set it to maximum power or lower the power. So if you're getting multiple tags, your power may be too high. You may need to lower it down to a different value. Once you set that, we're going to click Save. And we can see the handheld is telling me this item already exists. Do we want to update this item? We're going to say yes, because the item maybe was already imported into our database, so we already had that serial number or barcode, but we now added an RFID tag. So I'm going to go back to my main screen on the handheld. We're going to hit the sync button. This time we don't want to do a full refresh, we want to do updates only. So anything that I've updated on the handheld, it'll send to the database. Anything on the database side, it'll send back to the handheld. So it'll synchronize everything for us. So we're going to go ahead, hit send, let the sync happen. Right now this is happening over Wi-Fi on my handheld. Depending on how many records you have, it may take a couple minutes to do the sync for you. We'll click OK. So we've now performed the synchronization. So I can go ahead and search again to refresh my screen. And here we can see now that HP monitor has an EPC tag value. So that means that is now a trackable item for us. Okay. I'm going to go back to my handheld. We'll talk about a couple of the other options. We're going to go back to the add section again. And this time we're going to add a totally brand new item. So I'm going to go to locations. We'll choose a different location. Item type, I'm going to go ahead and say that this is just a folder. I'm going to go ahead and read a barcode value that's on this folder. And I'm going to go ahead and read the EPC that's tied to this and save it. So we've now added a brand new item that did not exist in the system. You saw we didn't get a message telling us that item already existed. So I'm going to exit, and instead of doing a sync right away, I'm going to go ahead and go to my encode screen. So the encode screen lets me program an RFID tag with a value and update the system. So again, I've got sort of the same options here. I'm going to say I'm in the warehouse. I'm going to say that this is a monitor, and we're just going to go and re-encode or reprogram the RFID tag for that monitor that we did at first based on the barcode. So I'm going to go ahead and leave my conversion as compressed. I'm going to read the barcode with the handheld, and you can see the system it read, reading, writing, and ready. So it completed re-encoding the RFID tag itself, but it also logged this information in the database. So we can see the new EPC here. I'm going to go ahead and close, and we're going to perform a sync. Again, updates only. We're going to hit send. So now all this new information that we just did on the handheld should sync over to the database. So we're complete. We're going to come back to the database and perform a search. And now we can see that we've got that new item in the system was added, a new folder. We've got the EPC and the barcode that we read. So that's all listed here. Now if I want to come in and give this asset a name, I can go ahead and do this. And we'll go ahead and save that. And if we perform a search again, it'll refresh here in the search results so that we can see our update. Going back to the handheld, we've got a couple different options that we still haven't talked about. One is a simple inventory, and one is an asset inventory. So I'm going to go ahead and go to simple inventory first. And with the simple inventory, what you're able to do is choose a location. So I'm going to choose that we're in the warehouse. And then you can still do a barcode inventory if you wanted to, but in this case we've got our items RFID tagged. So I'm going to leave this as RFID inventory. And I'm going to take my items and pass them in front of the scanner here. And we can see it's going to just give us an overview. It's going to say, okay, I've read one item that I know is a laptop. I've read 8 tags that I don't know anything about. I saw 1 folder and 1 monitor. So this just gives you an overview, but it will track any of these items it knows about to the warehouse location. So if we look back here in our database, we've got 1 in the dock and 2 in the warehouse. If I exit here and perform a quick sync of our updates only, it should now update the location of that 1 item that says it's in the dock to the warehouse. So we're going to click OK, refresh my screen, and we can see it updated, but it also added those additional 8 items that it didn't know anything about. That way, if you want to have them in your database, you're able to double click these and classify them, get them in the system. We're going to go back to the handheld. And before I do that, I'm going to manually update the 3 items that we know about. So I'm going to change their location to the dock manually. And this is just so that when we use the handheld here, we're going to be able to see the descriptions, because I don't have descriptions of those other items right now. Okay, so now we have that set. We're going to go to the handheld. We're going to perform a sync just to get those updates. And then we're going to perform an asset inventory. So the asset inventory is slightly different than the simple inventory. The top of the screen looks similar. You can choose to do an RFID or barcode. We set our location, so I'm going to choose dock. But what you'll now notice, when I choose that, it's going to tell me these are the items that I'm expecting in this location. So it's getting these off of the description here in the database. So any of these items that are listed in the dock, which is the location I chose, it's going to display their location or their description for me. I can then, and I'm going to lower the power slightly on my handheld. I'm going to pull the trigger now to read my tags, and we can see they went from red to white. So it's saying, hey, I was expecting 3, I found 3. At the top here, we've got a drop down, so we can specify, well, I only want to see the folders. Did you find all the folders I was looking for? Yes, it shows there was 1, and it's clear, checked off, means I found it. How about the laptops? Yep, we have our laptop, we found that, etc. We also have an option down here to show us results. So when you're doing an inventory, it'll show you items that were found, missing, moved, or new. So I'm going to perform this inventory again, but I'm going to leave off one of these items. So I'm going to go ahead, pull my trigger to read my items. Sorry, let me discard this first. All right, so we're going to go ahead and read. And now you can see one of the items, the Dell Inspiron laptop, is left in red. So it's telling us, hey, I didn't find this item that I was looking for. Down here, I can choose Found, and you can see it shows us the items that were found. I can hit the drop down, say, well, what was missing? And it'll show us the item that it didn't find, that it was expecting to find in this location. If I'm pretty sure this item is still in this location, from here, I can click on that item, and I can choose Find. And now this will pull up the Find search screen. So what this allows me to do is now walk around this room with the handheld, and as I get close to that item, you can probably hear it beeping, and you can see the status indicator showing me, hey, you're getting hot, you're red hot, you're right on top of that item. So this helps me locate an item in a room. And I can change my power, so at full power, I'm blasting, reading 15 feet out or so. At lower power, I can kind of zone in on the item, so I can set this so I'm only reading a couple feet out. Once I have all my items, so we'll go back to all results, I can go ahead and click Save. And it's now saved those items, updated them, set them to the dock. We're going to go ahead and close this, and we'll come back to the sync and perform an update sync. And our sync is complete. So we've now updated all of these items that were in the dock. If we look at any one of them, it will have updated with the date and time. One final option that we have on here is this Find checkbox. So we can see we've got a Find option here, and when I click on Find, there's nothing in my Find currently. But we'll go ahead and right-click one of the items in our search result and choose Add to Find. It'll ask us, do we want to add it to the Find list, and you can see it now puts a checkbox. If we perform a sync, because we always have to sync anytime we make changes, what should happen now is if we go to our Find section, that item is listed. So if we go back here, we can see it's the HR file for John Doe is selected under Find, and that's what we have in our Find menu. So now I can select that item, click Locate, and it brings us to the search screen where again I pull my trigger, and as I get close to that item, it beeps and shows me the color coding, and it gets red as you're right on top of it. So this will help me, almost like a metal detector, locate an item. Once I've found that item that I needed to, I can go ahead and remove it from this list. I could perform my asset or simple inventory if I needed to track it to a location. And then I could just go to the sync and update. Now because I removed it from my Find, what should happen here in the Tracking Plus, if I refresh the screen, do a search, now we can see there's no items that we're looking for because we found it, we unchecked it, and now it's cleared.